not a milestone event. I think it was in June that we had Chris Philo, our Parks and Rec Commissioner, came in. And we had the, I'll call it the unveiling, along with Ventuzzo Family Brands. Kayla, their CFO, did a presentation. The proposed design of a 2,400 square foot building that would be a restaurant, bar, pub type of thing. The town, I'll call it, Charlie would be the landlord, and Ventuzzo Family Brands would be the private operator. Now, we said back in June, as the process moved along, this is kind of one of those milestone things that we now need to go out, as Councilman Cahill said earlier, this is Wick's law. We need to go and advertise the bid packages. I think there's 4 of them. I want to say it's general contracting, HVAC, plumbing, and electrical. And they'll be advertised in the Webster Herald, but as John, you know this better than me because you're in the business, development and construction. It'll also be sent to where the developers all look for projects to bid on municipally. Mm-hmm. And basically, it's a sealed bid. I mean, you might get 4 bids, you might get 8 bids, you never know. And then,
are the drawings done for this? Just to send this out to bid, or will send?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Are they 100% done?
Somewhat. Well, when you say the drawings, Campus and Passero have put together. This is the different line items they think the estimated cost on those 4 that I just described, general contracting.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I don't want to get too granular, but a lot of concrete, helical pilings that the DEC is making us put in, the building shell, the type of roof that you have to have, and it's really got to be supported because it's got a roof top. It's a 2,400 square foot building, but let's not kid ourselves. The design that is put out there has about 1,000 square feet up top where people can sit. So John, as you know, the design and what that entails compared to a pitched roof, it's not going to have anything on it except for maybe snow and rain. A little different. So now we got to go and bid it to see, well, what is it come in at? Because we need to know what the low bids are, because that's going to dictate just how much this project's going to cost. And at the end of the day, it's a public-private partnership, and foundational to that is that if we have to go and get a bond to pay $1 million, $2 million to build this building based on the low bids and whatever, then whatever that bond costs, we have to get that money back for the taxpayers from the private restaurateur. Is that a good way to describe it, Chad?
Yeah. I'm glad to hear you say that.
The restaurateur, well, I think I've been pretty consistent on that in articles I've written and any communication I've had with any of restaurateurs and bar owners going back to the expression of interest back in early 2022, when 8 to 10 restaurateurs looked at doing this, and the only one that came in with a formal reply in April of 22 was the guys who owned the Bayside Pub. And Chris Bilo and I, our Parks and Rec Commissioner, met with the owners of the Bayside Pub 5 or 6 times between April of 22 and October of 22. And that was really a big part of our conversation. You can be involved in designing the kind of building you want to operate in, restaurants or bar owner, but be careful what you choose. You gild it with gold, and you make us go out and pay for it, Wick's Law, low bid. Know that if it costs $1 million, here's the bond, this is the interest rates, whatever, that's what you got to pay. Monthly rent, annual, whatever.
Right.
And what ended up happening in that situation in October of 22, the owners of the Bayside, we came to an impasse, I'll call it, that the estimated cost of what the building they wanted, which was a 2,400 square foot with a pitch roof, not a roof on top. And their features that they wanted was going to cost, the shell and whatever, $1 million, let's say. They were going to put in, I think it was 600,000 of leasehold improvements. You go in and build the inside.
Right.
And I want to say the bond at that time was going to be costing like $7,000 to $8,000 a month.
Right.
All right. And they said, you know what? We can't make a profit at that. We can only pay $3,000 a month rent. And it was like, yeah, but it's going to cost us $7,000 or $8,000 a month in principal and interest on the bond. Well, we can only afford $3,000 a month. Okay, I respect that you can only afford $3,000 a month. I take it at your face value that that's all you can pay and make this a viable business. You're in a for-profit business. I respect that. But I hope you respect that our job is to make sure that the taxpayers' dollars on this, a municipal built building, public-private partnership. The public part is we built the building. We need the private entity to be paying us in some semblance of rent, licensing, percentage of their proceeds, however you want to do it. Something that gets us where we can say to the taxpayers, we're getting your money back. We are not enriching a private company with taxpayer money. Very consistent about that. That's why that deal fell apart in October of 2022. I respected the fact that they say pay more than that, and they needed to respect the fact that unless you want to truncate down this 2,400 square foot building to 1,600 square foot, which is how big the old baseline was, you want to redesign this so we can get the price down for the taxpayers to an amount that you as a bar owner, restaurateur will be okay with paying monthly. If we're not going to go down that path, then this deal's dead. And it was. And that was 2 years ago. And we reached back out to the 7 or 8 restaurateurs that had shown interest earlier that year, and we said, hey, we've gone down the path with this group. There's an impasse. Are any of you still interested? And in January, February of 23, a couple of those restaurateurs said, yes, we are. We spent 6, 7 months with them, and by July or August of 23, one of them said, you know what, due diligence, I'm bowing out. And the one that said, I'm still interested is Fantuzzo Family Brands. And when they said they were still interested in July, August of 23, that's when the rubber hit the road, that they started spending money on design. They started spending money, their own money, on an architect designing a building that they wanted in their vision. And when they said it was 2,400 square foot, and they worked a little bit with campus construction management and pass-through, we said, well, here's the thing. If you really are serious about this, which you seem to be serious, because you're spending this money with your architect, then we really need to go to the DEC and apply for a pad permit or a square footage of impervious area of 2,400 square foot. And we did that in November of 23. Now, unfortunately, it took about 5 to 6 months for the DEC to come back and approve that. So now we were into March, April of 2024. So once they came back and said 2,400 square feet was okay, we got back in with Fantuzzo Family Brands, sharpened pencils, this and that. And by June of 24, we said, we think we are at a point in this process where it's time to unveil and introduce Fantuzzo Family Brands as the restaurateur who we think we're going to go down the aisle with toward this public-private partnership. Now, since June, since we had that workshop, the last couple of months, as we've sharpened pencils and gotten estimates and bid packages put together, that culminates where we are tonight. Now, if we do this resolution, and we now will go out and advertise those bids, when the bids come back, somewhere around October 25th, I think we estimated, Deneen, is when we will sit in this room. It's a public event, and open those sealed bids. Deneen, it'll be your first one, right? And then we'll get an idea of what is the cost of the plumbing, what is the cost of the HVAC, what is the cost of the general contracting. What was the other one?
Framing. Don't forget the framing.
It's in general contract.
Very important.
It's in the general contract.
All right.
Yeah. And then, and I would like to think, because Ventusa Family Brands has been here along the whole way, I really am cautiously optimistic we won't have what happened in October of 2022 with the old owners of Bayside, which is, well, here's what it's going to cost to build that building, now that we got the low bids. And if they come back and say, well, I'm only willing to pay this, and we have a delta there, what are we going to do, Chair? Right? This isn't baseball at that point. It's not 3 strikes and you're out. We went down the path with one reputable restaurateur. The numbers didn't jive. If we go down that path with this restaurateur, knock on wood, I don't think this is going to happen, but if that does end up happening, we're not, I mean, do we need to go back to the third?
No, we
might
don't,
need
but
to,
before you make your motion, I just want to recognize that I believe I read a letter to the editor recently where someone was not really criticizing, but hadn't heard any updates on the restaurant in a while. So I appreciate the fact that you just gave the history lesson, and now hopefully people will be caught up to date. So, you're very good at that, by the way.
well, it's a sickness. I can remember a lot of stuff from back that I can't remember what I had for breakfast, but I say it's easy. There was, yes, and I want to just comment on that, John. There is so many avenues for people interested in Sandbar Park and this restaurant to go to, and they know where to go. Our social media pages,
Right.
what we do on communications, the website. I can say that if we have updated this process all the way along, and it's very easy for somebody to come and say, in a letter to the editor, or come up on the podium and say, you haven't updated anybody else. People can write that, they can say that. The reality is, I know for a fact that we have been updating people on this. And if you go back to the tape in June of that, we said we'll be back in about 3 months.
Right.
I don't know, I mean, June to September is, I think, 3 months. So now I'm giving a little bit more detail of when we're going to be back in a month.
Yeah, 10 minutes of detail.
Yeah.
That was good.
Well, now you got an update that not only of where we've been historically on this,
Oh, yeah.
but that we will be opening bids, assuming that we get bids, somewhere in mid-October. And my guess is that based on our board schedules, that somewhere around November 7th's board meeting or November 21st board meeting, we will be back in here for either a workshop and or resolutions pertaining to what we got as the bids. Okay. So, maybe I wouldn't have won the bet, John.
No, definitely.
Any other questions or comments on this one?
I think we've exhausted all
Yeah.
the comments.
Well, I make a motion to solicit bids for the Town of Webster Sandbar Park Restaurant Construction Project and to advertise in the Webster Herald September 25th, 2024 edition.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty,
Aye?
Councilman Cahill,
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn. Aye.